Well, hi there, everybody. It's your friend, Mr. Bill from church, and I just wanted to let you know that I really miss seeing you guys at church, and I miss having children's church. But you know something, we'll be getting back to that sometime pretty soon. We just need to be patient, and we'll not only have children's church, but I'm looking forward to having Vacation Bible School this summer also. Anyways, just because we're not at church doesn't mean that we can't learn about God's great creation because he's made some pretty amazing things. And I just want to share another special animal with you today. Um, the animal I'm talking about is one of the smartest animals there are, at least the group of animals. When I think of smart animals, first thing I probably think about are the chimpanzees and the gorillas. Those are called the great apes, and they're smart because they have some great big brains. I also think about some of the sea mammals like dolphins and orcas. Uh, the whales and dolphins and porpoises uh, who travel together in families, and they're able to hunt together and work together. The animal I'm thinking about today really are not the great apes. They are not the sea mammals, but they are called corvids. And corvids is a group of birds. And even though the corvids don't have big brains like the apes and the whales, they have an itty bitty little brain, but it's wired different than some of these other animals. It's packed with neurons, and they're very, very small and very, very tight. But for being such a very small brain, it's actually a very, very intelligent animal. Um, Corvids include the crows and the ravens and the jaybirds. This group of birds have very good memories. They're able to use tools to uh, to get things done. They can solve puzzles and they can communicate with each other by talking. So during the fall, I like to watch crows, especially harvest walnuts. They'll swoop down, they'll grab a walnut, they'll take it way high up in the air, and they'll just hang right over the road, and then they'll drop it. And the walnut will come down and it'll crash on the road and crack. And then the raven or the crow, both of them, will come down and they'll pick the meat out of the shell and have a tasty little snack. Well, if by chance the walnut doesn't crack, they'll try it again. They'll take it way up in the air and they'll drop it again and see if it cracks. If it's a hard one, if it doesn't crack, what they'll do is they'll drop it in the road where a car is going to come. They know that the car is going to come back. And so they'll leave it there and the car will run over it and it'll crack and smash the walnut. But then the crow can come down and have, again, a tasty little snack. I know a guy named Jim who's been feeding crows for many years. Used to work with him, and every day now Jim will come, or not every day, but a couple times a week he'll come and feed crows. Well, the crows know his car and they know who Jim is, and even though Jim lives a few miles away, the crows know when he's loading into his car with the food, and they will follow him for several miles. And when he pulls in, the crows will gather in the trees and they'll wait. And as soon as Jim puts out the food, they come down and they'll eat it. And so they know, they have very good memory about how to get some good food. Anyway, so crows and ravens uh, look very similar. And some people think crows and ravens are just the same, and maybe a raven is just a big old crow, but that's not true. And so now I'm going to make you some of the smartest animals in the world. I'm going to tell you the difference between crows and ravens. So the next time you see a black bird, you'll be able to say, hey, that's a crow, or hey, that's a raven over there. And you'll show people how smart you are. So what is the difference between crows and ravens? Well, first of all, how big is it? A crow is about the size of a pigeon, which isn't too awful big. A raven, on the other hand, is about the size of a red-tailed hawk. So if you can imagine a crow being about something about, about this big, it's kind of smaller. So that would be a crow. But if you can think of something maybe a little bit bigger, about like this, it might be a raven. You could have a big crow, or you could have a small raven, so they could still look about the same. But overall, ravens are a little bit bigger than crows. What does its beak look like? Now it has a kind of a sharp beak. It's probably a crow. Ravens have bigger, huskier looking beaks. And if you put the two side by side, you see the crow definitely has a bigger nose kind of looking thing there. Um, what does it look like when it flies? Well, crows like to flap their wings. So crows will flap their wings a lot as they're flying. Ravens, on the other hand, like to soar. They like to ride the waves of the wind, and so they don't flap their wings as much. Um, how many are there? Well, crows like to hang around with their buddies, and so if you see several of these blackbirds hanging out together, chances are they'll be crows. If you only see one or maybe two, ravens, because ravens like to have social distancing. They like to have a little bit of distance between them, between themselves. So if you see several crows, what does it look like on the ground? Well, if it just kind of walks and waddles a little bit like this, it's probably a crow. If it hops like this, raven. So waddle, crow, hop, raven. Um, where do they live? Well, crows kind of like to hang around town because there's a lot of food down there. They can live in the forests. They live where there's gardens and things. They do like to eat fruits and vegetables too. Ravens tend to like the mountains, the hills. They like to be kind of on their own a little bit more. So uh, if it's downtown, probably crows. But probably the biggest clue is, what do they sound like? Now, if you like to bird watch, you know that a bird's voice gives away what kind of bird it is. Now, if you hear something that sounds kind of like more like a bird that's trying to say something, or maybe like a human voice, it's probably going to be a crow. Now, if you hear something along the lines of this, wait, is that a crow? Let me see, is that a crow? There he is. Yep, that's a crow. Yep. Oh, there's a bunch of crows. Oh, that's a whole bunch. Yep, see, those are crows. There's a bunch of them together. You see that? They just flew over. All right. Now, if you hear a raven, it sounds like they sound like they got something in their throat. It's kind of raspy sounding. Wait, is that I think I see a raven. Is that a raven? No. Oh, there it is. That's kind of scary sounding. But that's a raven. I saw that raven go by. Anyways, so they're not the same. They're quite a bit different. So just like we're made differently, crows and ravens are made a little bit differently, but they're both intelligent, they're both smart, and they're both beautiful creations that God made. You guys, I hope you learned a little something today, and I hope to see you in church soon. But for now, have a good day. Bye-bye.